Alright, so it's time for another garden update. So it's now July, and I'm starting to get some red tomatoes. I've definitely been getting some tomato hornworms. I've got a video on how to use black light to control them. Unfortunately, I have noticed that I don't always find them all with a black light, and sometimes I definitely still get damage from them. So it's also a good idea to look during the day. So these are my tomatoes. I have a big, looks like I have a big velvet leaf in the middle of these, and I've had some tomato hornworm damage. I don't see it right now. I'm gonna have to come out again at night if I can't find it. But these are a variety of tomato called Crnkovic Yugoslav. And I think some of the tomatoes were kind of in this drought situation, so they haven't been doing super well. And I've been trying to water them, but I do have this guy. So this is actually a pink tomato, and some of these little specks that may be from stink bugs. They tend to probe the tomato fruits. So I've got this pepper down here that's kind of trying to die on me. It's really dry. Like I said, we're kind of in drought condition. But I just watered the garden, so these peppers are kind of recovering from being dried out a little bit. They're wilting quite a bit. These are mostly Ruia. They tend to have somewhat smaller peppers, but it is still a bell pepper. This is the Ruia right here. This one over here is, this is Olympus. Tends to produce a somewhat bigger pepper, but I think they've been kind of hindered by a lot of the drought conditions that we've been having. This is what's left of the squash bed. I've definitely had some issues with squash vine borers, squash bugs, and even a lot of my no spray techniques. They've still got a lot of squash bugs. I've actually used a shop vac to vacuum up some of them. So I've had to rip some of them out because I've had some squash vine borers, but I've had a lot of production. I've just got so many zucchinis, I still can't use them all, so it's not really a big deal. And I've replanted in the experimental bed. Over here, I planted some late basil that I got, so I thought, well, the squash bugs won't go after the basil, and I'll have something at least going on towards the end of the year. So what I have here, these are all Black Beauty squash, and this is the Tromboncino. I kind of left this one alone. It's in the Moschata group, Cucurbita moschata instead of Cucurbita pepo, so it's a little more resistant to squash bugs. So it really, and the squash vine borer, so it's been doing pretty well. But I found out that the squash, I don't really like their flavor that much. They kind of turn into something like a butternut squash. I don't know how great they are when they're mature. When they're immature, they just don't have much flavor, so I haven't been super impressed with them. The rest of these, though, are all Black Beauties. So, and they're doing reasonably well. This one may have a squash vine borer in there. I may have to pick at it. I have, looks like, rescued a couple plants by poking at the squash vine borers before they got very far. You look for the frass, and if you can catch them early enough, sometimes you can actually kill the borer, the grub, before it actually kills your plant, but it doesn't always work. See, this one's definitely got a big hole in this one. I don't know if I actually put this out yet or not. Basically, the only way to get rid of them is to either, you can supposedly do a spray injection. You can do a spray ahead of time, but you can also do an injection of BT. I've never really gotten that to work. But you can also basically hack at the vines and pull out the grubs. And if you do it fast enough, you can kill them before they kill the plant, but it doesn't always work. But we've already gotten lots of zucchinis out of these, so it wouldn't be the end of the world if I lost them, because I did replant recently. So anyway, this is the big zucchini bed that's doing pretty well, despite all of the insect pressure and drought and all kinds of other stuff that we've had going on. So this is the second squash bed, and this is actually a unique variety of zucchini that I got. This one is called Nimba, and I haven't really noticed as much squash vine borer or squash bug activity on them, but they have not been nearly as productive. I basically got a few zucchinis at the start and haven't really gotten a whole lot else. So it's an interesting variety. This I got from Baker Creek, and I'll probably try it again, but it's a little weird. But it's more resistant, but you don't get as much production. The rest of these I'm pretty sure are all Black Beauty again, and they unfortunately are quite susceptible. These, some of them, I already ripped out some squash vine borers. You can kind of see here where I basically cut these open and pulled the little borers out. So I've still got a zucchini going on that. So that's one of the ways you can deal with squash vine borers. They're very, very difficult. Really demands, you really should be, if you're growing zucchini like this, you really have to check them and work with them pretty much every day to kind of try and keep up with them. It's quite labor intensive, but you do get a lot of production out of them. And even if you fall down for a while, you can replant a little bit later in the season, really even still about now, and you can still get zucchinis before frost. So anyway, the squash are doing surprisingly well despite the kind of adverse conditions that I have. What's doing really well here are the cherry tomatoes. So this is Matt's Wild Cherry. This is by far my favorite cherry tomato. I've actually picked a bunch of cherries this morning because I wanted to have some eggs. And of course we have chickens, so eggs are pretty much always on the menu. So these have been doing really well. This other one, Moskvich, the main issue I've been having with it is the tomatoes have been small and they have had kind of some blossom end rot, kind of mushy stuff going on. And I'm not really sure why, if that's just from the drought, which it could be. They're not doing very well. And this bed tends to be the driest of all of my beds. This is the center bed. And I haven't really found anything that's like super, super happy in it. So apparently these bigger beds are much better for the squash. So anyway, peppers in here. Been picking some peppers, getting a few more peppers. The heat is just so hot and it's been so dry that it's just really hard on them. You can see this is more of that Moskvich. So Moskvich is another Russian variety. The other one I have is a Russian variety also. And it's supposed to be really early. And I thought the tomatoes were supposed to be bigger. So I'm not sure what's up with them. Again, it may just be the drought. But some of my other tomatoes are doing better. This last bed, aside from the bean bed, this has the crazy big tomatoes. So this one is called Sunset Red Horizon, which is actually, it's been renamed that from a group called Tomato Fest. See, these guys are some of the things that produce those little marks on the tomato. You really want to get rid of those. Unfortunately, they're bugs, so there's not really good sprays for them. BT doesn't work on bugs. It only works on caterpillars and beetles. True bugs, I mean. But you can see we've got some pretty good sized tomatoes there. These peppers have been doing really well. I kind of overwatered this bed a while back. So the plants here are doing a lot better. Really, really nice tomatoes. Got some peppers back here. There's actually a poison ivy plant in the middle of this bed. I keep trying to kill it every year and it just does not want to die. I'm not really sure why. Here's some more peppers. So unfortunately we had a lot of kind of the pepper version of blossom end rot. And I think it's probably just the lack of moisture, because we really haven't had rain in probably, it's been close to a month. So it's not super great. But we're trying to make do the best we can and water the plants. And at least this variety seems to be doing pretty well. Which of course the plants look pretty good, but there's really no beans on them. And why are there no beans on them? Because to produce beans, you have to have cool nighttime temperatures. And we have not had cool nighttime temperatures really very much at all. There's a few beans on some of the kind of more distant bean plants, and they are flowering. Oh, there's one. There's one bean. But we're not getting a whole lot. So usually how this works is the plants grow up, and then kind of towards the end of the year, the end of the growing season, we start getting beans actually being produced. But, you know, it is what it is. It's Missouri, and especially this year, it's hot and it's dry, so I'm not getting a whole lot. Over here, unfortunately, this is the best okra, but my okra has just been virtually failing. This one's actually got a few flower buds on it. Let's see right there. This is supposed to be a really large okra. Now, this particular bed has not been, I have not really added a lot of fertilizer to it, so that's partly my fault. But even in some of the other beds that I tried to expand into, I didn't have enough, what do I want to say? I didn't have enough mulch basically to put on them, so they got too many weeds and they're just not doing very well. So I'm not good on the okra part, but it's not the end of the world. Peppers and tomatoes are really our main, peppers, tomatoes, and beans are our main focus anyway.